Hello and what is up YouTube? My name is G3Iron and today what I'm doing is giving you a little bit of a build diary update of what I have been doing since the league started and since I transitioned from my league starter to what is more now of an endgame build. So I am typically known around these parts for being an enthusiast of all things summoner. If a build uses permanent minions, then it gets my attention just immediately. I usually play something relating to specters or zombies, or even in the past have done some temporary minion builds as well. Whether that's been SRS, whether that's been skeletons, whether that's been other sorts of what we could say non-meta, non-traditional minions, such as Holy Relic, Holy Relic. Anyway, so I league started with a Elementalist Hotstepper, and that build guide that I used to use and follow is actually going to be linked down below in the video description. I should say that about everything that I'm going to mention today. Everything is going to be mentioned down below in the video description. So if I mention another player's build, if I mention another content host's discussion or breakdown of a build, then I'm going to link it down below in the video description. POVs are all going to be down there as well. So I league started a Elementalist Hotstepper. Nowadays it is most popularly known probably with its biggest fanboy being Subtractum. He's got a great long form discussion post video sort of style of manual for all things Hotstepper. It's a wonderful Frostblink Elementalist playstyle. It's very, very fast, and with that league start setup, I actually was able to league start my fastest time ever in terms of killing Kitava. It was just over 8 hours. I think it was 8 hours and 10 minutes on a league start, which for me is ridiculously fast, and I was very, very pleased with that result. But as with all things, I wanted to level with a witch, so that way once I essentially got to maps to a certain period, usually past white maps, once I start to push into yellows, that's when I could then swap on over to playing something that was more comfortable as a summoner, because I really like, well, having the Righteous Fire sort of playstyle, being tanky and defensive, and also kind of just going AFK and letting your damage do its thing. That's kind of what summoners do, at least with permanent summoners. And so the plan was league start with an Elementalist and then swap over to a Necro. That was pretty much the start. Identify if there were any OP particular specters that were just absolutely sick or mind-boggling, etc. Like what we had last league. Well, with the Auto Bomber Spectre builds. Well, as I was playing through, I actually dropped a Soul Rest. So I swapped over to a Soul Rest build, and I noticed that there were very few players playing Soul Rest, and I saw somebody that was trying Soul Rest with the new Holy Relic of Conviction, and I thought, okay, that's kind of interesting. Let's see what all this is about. And so I started picking around, taking a look and reading up on some of the mechanics and viewing some of the videos that people are pumping out about their gameplay. One of those videos is going to be linked down below with Jay Necromancer, who's got a level 100 character who is using, of course, a Necromancer and Holy Relic of Conviction. And all I've got to say is it does not play like a typical summoner build. You can see this. This is what I'm messing around with here, just in a really low level tier 7 waste pool map, super low level, just for fun, so that way I can be chatting with some gameplay in the background. And yeah, this build, although it is I like how I hit all my flasks there reactively after all the after all of the danger actually went off. This build feels, in terms of gameplay it feels like a wander. Like, that's what it feels like. It feels like you go into a zone, you're going to fire Lancing Steel of Spraying, which actually then is going to be linked with, where is it, returning projectiles. And so a whole bunch of projectiles are going to fire out in one direction, but then they're going to come back behind you. And the way how this new Holy Relic, this alternative Holy Relic works, where is he? He actually will proc their abilities in the zone where the thing gets hit, right? So when you shoot off your Lancing Steel of Spraying and something is off screen or near the edge of your screen, when something gets hit off screen, that's where your Holy Relic is going to actually proc its damage, is going to be on the end of the screen. Typically, when I used to play Moosseolini's Holy Relic Guardian, this is several years ago now, you would play it with a melee skill, and the melee skill would actually set off and proc the Novas to blast a couple of times. And if you went really far out, then you could use Joffrey's Crest, and you could have 2 Holy Relics. And it was actually surprisingly a good build. It was tanky. It did some decent boss damage, and there were a couple different ways to scale it. That was several years ago now, though. This build plays nothing like a traditional summoner in that you're just like AFK and your minions are going to go out and proc things and deal damage. This build plays more like a wander. It feels almost like a wander. Like if you've played Kinetic Blast, for instance, you know that you're going to be shooting stuff, or Power Siphon. You know that you're going to be shooting stuff on the edge of your screen, exploding things as you can. If you've played a Poet's Pen build and you've used Frenzy to proc your Poet's Pen, right? That's the sort of build that it feels like, which is actually pretty cool, because I was thinking as I was leveling up, it'd be real on opening weekend, it'd be really nice if a Poet's Pen just dropped for me, because that would make leveling so much faster. And it actually wouldn't have, because all of my Poet's Pen starts where I've actually had a Poet's Pen on opening weekend were slower than my Frostblink. But anyway, that's another conversation. So it's a really interesting kind of hybrid, because it is a minion build. Like, Holy Relic is the thing that's doing the damage. You're going to use poison in order to scale up the damage. But the way that you're going to proc your Holy Relic from actually like popping off its Nova attack and its spell is actually just going to be trying to off-screen things. So it's this really interesting kind of gameplay, because you feel like you're a wander, you're scaling like you're a minion build, and so you've got a bit of some good layers of defenses, depending on how much you invest into the build. And then you've also got some really strong offenses that can clear from a ways away. And because it scales up with poison, it can do some good damage for bosses as well. So that's the general sense of where I'm at. That's the general sense of how my opening league weekend went. I'm now going to pull up some POBs here. This is my terrible POB that's got all of my stuff on it. It's just awful. Like, my skills, my items, they're all set up. They're terrible. There's so many things that I need to upgrade, whether it's from my amulet to my rings. Even my boots are probably not that great. A lot of the stuff that I've got is actually from other different sorts of characters and templates that I've been trying out. And so this is the build I think that I've settled on, though, to continue with, is actually going to be Holy Relic. And I think it's a pretty darn good build in terms of its defensive options and in terms of its offensive flexibility as well. Again, I'm playing pretty low-tier yellow maps. I've pushed some and gotten some red completions, yet work and family life has been pretty hectic here after league start, and so I've got a lot of room to improve this thing. I'm only level 90. Don't even have my 4th ascendancy yet on Necro. And yeah, like this build in the state that it's currently in handles a heck of a lot better than my Frostblink build that at the time had more currency that was synced into it and had more power level versus the level of content that I was taking on at the time. So this build feels great. It feels really weird. It's a minion build. It's a wander. It's got defensive layers. It's just good. It's just good. So that's my stuff. Again, my information is all going to be down below, but that's not the stuff that you want to look at. The stuff that you want to look at is you want to look at J Necromancer's stuff, which the POB is here, showing it all off here. He's got some awesome stuff. His body armor that he's using is Diala's Malfliction, which is really good because for Holy Relic, there are particular thresholds that you want to hit. I'm not going to get into all the details here today. Today's supposed to just be a quick diary update of the build. But there's thresholds that you want to get to for gem level quality on your Holy Relic of Conviction. Because depending on what quality you're at, you're actually going to have more procs off of its spell off screen that are hitting and dealing damage. And so in a word, quality can be a damage multiplier. It's not necessarily. There's certain thresholds you have to hit. But quality actually on the gem can be a damage multiplier. A pretty big one, too. Loved the trick of going with Asenath's Gentle Touch. That's really, really nice. It's helpful for clear. and for explosions. A lot of the time, stuff just doesn't die when it's on screen because it already died off screen, like because you've already procced explosions from all of your spraying projectiles that are then, well, proccing all of your various relics. So there's a lot of things for me to upgrade. Like his Darkness Enthroned is almost perfect. Mine is like the lowest tier. His, where is it? Elegant Hubris. This is absolutely sick. Take a look at this Elegant Hubris that he's got. As I was looking at this, sometimes you look at builds and you look at their particular timeless jewels and you just go, is that really necessary for my build? Well, take a look at this. 80% increased minion damage, 80% increased minion damage, 80% increased minion damage, 80% increased damage. Like, if you were to remove this timeless jewel, it's an insane amount of minion damage that's going into this. So anyway, this is his tree. This is his info. If you'd prefer not to look at it on Path of Building, you can look at it over here on POE.ninja. So J Necropolis, he's hit level 100. For those of you that are wondering why do you use the sword or what's the trick with the sword, ideally with the sword you want to get as much attacks per second as you can get. And then you want to trigger a socketed spell on using a skill because you're going to socket your Bone Offering, your Desecrate, and your Spell Cascade all inside your weapon. So that way, just as you're flying around, you constantly have Bone Offering up. I actually think I'm overkill over here. I'm using a Roomies. What am I at here for my defenses? I'm like, what, 52, 16? And so once I start moving around and actually casting, I'm what, way over block chance for attack, and I'm 50%. I mean, if I use Roomies, I'm 75, 62, and way over. I'm 104 on block chance. So, like, there's a lot of things that I need to adjust continually moving forward, but Jay has absolutely got this thing down. He's not wasting a spot with Roomies. He's using an Amanu's Gaze, which that's a several divine item. At the moment, he's using a replica Dragon's Fang with +3 to the level of all Summon Holy Relic gems. That's also a multi-divine item. A 6-link Dialas that's got the these particular... You don't need these particular corruptions, okay? You don't need +2 to level of socketed minion gems. You don't need 5% reduced damage taken from fire. But obviously, whatever you can get is great. If you can get it as a 6-link, that's really what you're looking for, is for a Dialas. And it's going to go really, really well. You're going to see things exploding off screen. In terms of other things that are super duper expensive, obviously the Elegant Hubris is going to be super rare. Forbidden Flame and Forbidden Flesh in order to get Void Beacon allocated, and then just some other nice pieces of rare gear. Like this shield is just absolutely sick. Look at all this that's fractured on there. Minions deal 10% damage, 106 to the life, +1 to level of all minion skill gems. Minions have increased maximum life and then deal 108% increased damage. That's just a crazy sick, absolutely awesome shield that I will probably never be able to replicate this league, but who knows with Necropolis crafting. Maybe I will be able to replicate it. Anyway, these are just a couple of the builds that I've been messing around with. Soul Rest actually did do a decent amount of work for me as I was playing with it. It was a really, really fun thing to kind of transition to. There's my wife, Mrs. Draconis, say hi. I want to say Soul Rest for a moment. Before I made the swap to this setup with this whole Lancing Steel procking, Soul Rest was pretty fun because I was still using Holy Nova, but Holy Nova was only doing, or Holy Relic, was only doing damage around my character, right? So basically what I was doing was spinning around using Cyclone to proc, cast while channeling, desecrate, Bone Offering, that sort of trick. Really old school trick. I want to say at least I started using that way back in Metamorph, like 3.9. Back when everybody was stacking, block chance, and we just had 15,000... between health and energy shield, strength stacking, necromancers. It was just absolutely insane. Anyway, so I've been using that trick with Soul Rest to get a whole bunch of minions popped, and it was pretty good for clear, pretty atrocious for bossing, just using poison, just stacking a whole bunch of poison chance, ghastly eye jewels, and it worked. It progressed. It even took down a couple of red maps, but the speed of it on bosses wasn't that great. But I was surprised at how well it actually did clear. Pleasantly so. But what ultimately made me make this switch was seeing how few people were playing with this Holy Relic of Conviction and just going, what the heck? I have this within my budget. I can reach it. Let's give it a shot. It's something I've never played. I've played Soul Rest. I've played Phantasms. I've played Holy Relic, but I've never played it as kind of this like wander style ranged minion character. Anyway, so that's where I'm at. That's the build update. I'm going to keep flipping items. I'm going to keep selling things. And I'm going to keep dumping currency into this build because I think this build, at least for me, this might be the build of the league. I mean, this has got a lot of potential, especially with the breakpoints on the gem levels for this thing. And you can get gem levels for minions all over the place. So there's a lot of opportunity here with this build. And you can scale up like attack speed as well, because the more you're attacking, the more you're proccing, you're potentially targeting and focusing your relics on your target really well. So it can be really good for bossing as well. You've got to stay a little mobile though. It is not just a set it and forget it style of summoner gameplay. So I will say that if you're trying to play AFK summoner style, then this one's not going to be for you. That's still going to be zombies or golemancers or specters, or even poison SRS. That was kind of my other thought when I switched over to this. I was like, well, I'm switching over to a poison-based Holy Relic build. Like if this fails, I can always switch over to poison SRS and I'll be fine. And this has been so good and so enjoyable. I'm like, I don't think I even need to switch over to poison SRS. Anyway, that's the build update. That's the build diary. Hopefully your league starter has transitioned well. Either you're continuing your league starter or maybe you've turned it over into something else like what I've done. Drop me a comment down below and let me know how your build is doing. What's your story of your build throughout the league? Maybe you had a build that didn't go so well and it kind of just failed. Maybe that's one of the reasons why you're not enjoying the league. Maybe one of the reasons why you're enjoying the league is you found a build that's actually doing really well, and the core gameplay state of Path of Exile you feel like is actually in a really great spot. That's where I feel at the moment. Anyway, drop me a comment down below. Let me know how your build is going. And as always, I hope the ongoing 324 Necropolis League is the league. A Mirror of Calandra drops for you. Thanks for watching that video. If you'd like more information on any of our discussion points today, you can see them down below in the video description. If you'd also like to join our Discord or support our Patreon, you can do so with the links down below. Thanks again, and big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters.